Hi, and welcome to a brand new episode of Live from the Pool House. We're coming live. It is, of course, your boy, T.L. Foster, and I'm here joined, as always, by my lovely co-host,
your homie, Sonya.
And today, we are going to be talking about a very like, weirdly now special episode of, like, Fresh Prince, which is probably one of the most, like, famous guest stars they would have on there. So we figured, why not have a very famous guest star of our own?
Oh, stop
it. And we are joined by, of course, a man who needs no introduction.
DJ Harry Chris Antista, and also known as to his lady as Teddy Jam. And lifelong Fresh Prince of Bel-Air fan, man.
Yeah, and Chris is one of our very tall friends, so.
It shouldn't matter in a Zoom conversation.
That's
you're the one sitting on the ground, Sonya.
It's comfortable.
So Chris, for those of you who don't know who Chris is, which I doubt it, but let's say you don't. Chris, you run one of the best podcast networks out there.
Ruin. You forgot one.
Right. No, see, I don't come on every episode, so you can't ruin it. So yeah, just tell the audience a little bit about your podcast.
I do Laser Time, kind of a deep dive into a different topic of pop culture every week, in addition to 30-20-10, which talks about notable anniversaries 30-20-10 years ago, and Video Game Apocalypse, a weekly look at video games, past, present, new. I know that's not a good description. Michael's going to kill me, but because it's a really fun show that starts with an evergreen magazine feature, then we get into topical stuff. But it's long, but it's well researched, and that's about all you can get here.
Yeah.
That's about all I can do in this environment.
No, I think it's really great. Like, full disclosure, I've done a lot of those podcasts.
Oh, you're in cahoots.
So,
I've listened to a lot of them, so.
Have you really, Sonya? And you still had me on. Thank you so much. Thank you. I've said a lot of regrettable things.
Nah, it's
I mean, so
you're a
am
white
I.
man on the internet.
I know.
Sorry, a tall man on the internet.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Chris, how do you like? You're our first white guest, so we're gonna ask you all these questions that as minorities we would normally not know. Like, how does it feel being white? How's privilege?
It's overrated. It's a little overrated because, like, it turns out like you have this whole privilege angle, but unless you're rich, everything still sucks. And and yeah, granted, I have to like fork over $500 a month for health insurance, making it my largest bill in history. Just to ensure myself, I'm going broke paying for health insurance during a pandemic, and no one has a problem with this situation at all.
Well, I live in Canada, so I don't know what that's like.
You're less likely to be shot by someone who refuses to wear a mask. And
well, and I wanted to ask you, as a white man, how does it feel to be able to go out and walk at 3 in the morning, just walk on the street, do whatever you want?
These are all things that, like, I neglect that I can do, and I didn't realize until, like, basically the internet that, like, I had this kind of luxury, but I'm trying to be aware of it now, and it's. But here's the thing: when I started a podcast, I had no awareness of privilege, so I have like at least like half a decade of unbearable fucking self-important content where all of my opinions feel like they matter more than everyone else's, and I have to sit here and regret that all day. But and now I sit in a spot like I have to be excited about something because, like, my assertion on things doesn't matter at all. I have no problem sharing my excitement about things. But yes, like the value of my own opinion has gone down so much after just being a little bit more self-aware about how fucking great it is to be straight, white, and tall.
Well, what's that quote from The Simpsons? I am a white male, age 18 to 40. Everyone listens to me.
Thank you for extending it to 40 just for me. By the way, that was awesome. That was awesome. But after everything I just said, with the humility I tried to offer you, I'm the best person you could have asked to do this show.
Really?
Oh, that's so humble.
I'm the best
that would be,
person.
that would be our next question. So, what is your history with the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air?
So I am so absolutely glad you asked, because I don't get to talk about this enough, in my opinion, because there may never be another situation where your boy, Chrissy Pants, is on the forefront of rap and hip hop. But like, most people I know were sort of introduced to Will Smith via Fresh Prince. I was a Fresh Prince, DJ Jazzy Jeff and Fresh Prince mega fan before the show aired. When I found out about the show, I lost my mind. Can we curse here? I didn't even ask.
Yeah.
I did,
I'm going to bleep it, but yes, you can curse.
I gravitated towards mostly funny music anyway when I was a little kid, and I can vaguely remember being at the county fair and the radio station was there and giving out CDs with like the holes punched through them.
Right.
They're like promotional copies they don't want you to sell back when music was worse. Damn it.
It's fine.
And I won at the fair for some reason the album And in This Corner. And by DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince.
The follow-up album.
Yes.
Ah.
So like, and I know MTV existed, and the music videos were out there, because to me, seeing the intro to the show is like, this is so cool. The people from the music video are in the intro. I think that's like lost on most people, that Will Smith, DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince had a thematically consistent music videos with the same actors in them, and they're all in this intro, and it's why they don't appear in the show. That is not James Avery in a wig. Those are people who were in the music videos. And I was aware of MTV, but like, I remember seeing these music videos on Fox and just kind of being obsessed with Will Smith, having no idea that was his name. And like, I thought he was one of the funniest. I was instantly a big Weird Al fan, but I thought he was one of the funniest musicians I've ever heard in my life. I make fun of Will Smith's music all the time, from the ha-ha Willennium period to the happy rap story songs from DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince that always start with, well, and then he tells you a story of what happened that day. It's beautiful. I did a play in summer camp to the song I Think I Can Beat Mike Tyson, and I still remember all the lyrics to this day. So being told that like this guy you really like, and like none of my friends no one hated Fresh Prince at all, but like he was not cool. He was not cool with my white friends. He was not cool with my black friends. Every period of rap had something cooler going on. From like at this period, MC Hammer was way cooler than Fresh Prince. Right. We move into gangster rap. Obviously, this kind of music is losing a little bit of its luster. But it wasn't until like Summertime was like a big breakthrough hit, because it wasn't funny.
And it was a good jam. Yeah, I like that one.
So in my world, Will Smith was the absolute, I'm not going to curse again, the absolute poo-poo. I loved him. I love those music videos so much. I didn't even have them on tape. I have a lot of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air episodes on tape. And I just, in hindsight, I don't know if I recognized it at the time, listening to those albums over and over again, In This Corner, I'm the Rapper, He's the DJ, I was just like, this guy is confined to music. He deserves to be something bigger. And whenever you hear like behind the scenes complaints of Will Smith tampering with projects, like, dude, did you hear the music he wrote? This shit is hilarious. Right. This is so funny. Like, the stuff that dude wrote before he stopped writing is so funny. Right. He is an instantly charismatic and magnanimous person. I could not have been more excited to learn he had a sitcom out, but I somehow missed the first episode. But I know I was there early on, because I remember this episode, and watching it now with I don't know, like older eyes, more woke eyes. I don't know, like it has so much different meaning to it. And I'm thanking you guys for reintroducing the show. Also, you owe me $20, because the great streaming wars have claimed another victim, and you can't stream Fresh Prince anywhere because it's going behind the paywall of HBO Max. So I had to pay $20 to Amazon to watch this episode.
First of all, I don't have to, look, some of us come prepared. Some of us come prepared.
And it's on Netflix Canada too, so
you lucky dog. I mean, have you seen those HBO Max commercials? It's like Justice League, Rick and Morty, and then like a close up of Will Smith, like vamping at the camera, because that is one of the things they're hinging their hopes on. Like, we are locking Fresh Prince behind the HBO Max paywall. And I'm like, why not get it in HD? That is a lie. There is no HD Fresh Prince in the universe.
Well, I mean, I think all these were all shot in they're all shot in SD, right? So
TV format too. So that's
No, it's
I'm sure you guys talked about that already. It's a fascinating story created by Quincy Jones. Will Smith is broke, and I love the way he I am broke and famous, so I'm recognized on the bus. And
that's like me right now in my city. Like, I've been on some local things, but then people see me on the bus, or like some little girl saw me at the donut shop and was like, "I know her," and I'm like, her mom looks at me all terrified.
It happened to me working in the video game industry, just because oh man, I know that guy, he's so cool. He has a better YouTube channel. There were no YouTube channels back then. But then there'd be a launch of a console, and that dude or gal is in the same launch line as the rest of us. They're just waiting for this console. Because Nintendo doesn't give you anything. But the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air was one of my favorite things. And it's so much one of my favorite things. The only proof I have in my brain is that you could tell me Blossom never existed and it was just a dream I had, because I weathered that show for the entire time. After I just wandered into Blossom after Fresh Prince, and barely remember anything, but I watched every episode of it from beginning to end because of how much I loved Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Being an enormous Will Smith fan, I saw 6 Degrees of Separation in the theater, which it's probably not the role you want to see the Fresh Prince in, as a conniving gay man seducing people to steal their money. But I followed that dude everywhere, and watching him get super huge and famous was delicious to me. Right. Up until Men in Black, there was no ill will between me and Will.
Wait, Men in Black, we can't go there, because I love Men in Black. Men in Black 2, I'll give you. Men in Black 1, it's fun.
It's perfect, yeah.
Why are you defending? You always do this. You're defending the worst Men in Black movie on purpose.
Men in Black 1?
No, you said 2.
No, I said 2 is bad. 2 is bad. 1 is good, and 2 is actually not the worst. You did not see Men in Black International. That is by far the worst.
Okay, all right. Touche.
Men in Black 1 was amazing. I love that one. Vincent D'Onofrio.
Yeah, it's one of the last pure movie moments of my entire life. I think this is going to be awesome. Hey, it is. It is the best, and there's no articles telling me about how it's shitty, how Tommy Lee Jones is fingering alien puppeteers on that. Never mind. I wasn't supposed to curse. That wasn't even a curse.
Fun fact, that movie came out in the 6th grade. I remember I was walking to school at the beginning. This is how cool I am. At the beginning of the school year, doing the alien Will Smith dance, the walk with me outside. I did the whole dance walking to my school, because I'm a totally cool guy.
I can speak for all of your classmates. What I saw, I did not see. And I am curious. I didn't usually think of things like this, but you're asking me for certain racial perspectives. My black friends didn't like Fresh Prince at all, or my white friends,
or the show, or the
music, music. So I am sort of curious. There wasn't a YouTube, there wasn't a play. I discovered there's a video for my favorite song yesterday. There wasn't a place to go, and how did Will Smith become famous? Because
I would put on my hip hop hat.
Please do it. That's what I'm asking.
Oh man, that's a nice hat.
This is my wheelhouse. So Fresh Prince, because him and Jazzy Jeff, they were doing this years even before I'm the Rapper, He's a DJ came out, right?
Yeah.
They were doing talent shows. I don't know if I ever told you this, Chris.
No.
I think I talked about this, Sonya, on the first episode. But my dad is originally from the part of Philadelphia where Will Smith is from, in Jazzy Jeff. And my Aunt Carla used to say, like, he got
Is it
really,
the east part?
It is West Philadelphia.
Okay.
But so they used to do like they would do the talent show stuff, like legit rec room talent shows. Like my grandma Pat, like they had the whole thing, and they would do it there. And he got really big because he was someone who was writing his own rap, but at the same time you had rappers who were kind of in his mold but had more of a street vibe, right? They weren't doing funny stuff, they weren't doing character stuff. So you'd have stuff like LL Cool J, who is like his contemporary, and we'll talk about him like later on in the show when he does In the House, right?
We'll have to.
But they're contemporaries. But if you were a younger black kid, right, who would have been someone who would have been into Fresh Prince, you might go more with LL Cool J because he was doing more, I don't want to say conscientious, but more like rapping about like everyday life, where Will was definitely doing a more comedy thing. Yeah. But it's also because Will Smith is a legit genius, and I don't mean that as a oh, he's a genius, right? Like, no, he would have gotten to MIT. I'm
totally with you on this. There's almost no one in the world like Will Smith, and I love him to death. Right.
So when he would write like basically write comedies. Like that was like his way of doing it. It would be almost like if Adam Sandler, when he was doing like his albums, became like a very big musician off his albums. Like, it's still comedy. And the reason why Will works really well in the show, because it's all just comedy. It's just that he was able to make really good music with it. He does do songs like Summertime and Parents Will Just Understand, and those are big hits, but they're big pop hits. Yeah. And it might not have been people, because like at the time when those would have came out, you would have been, like I said, you would have been like what, like 8 or 9 when those songs came out. So the people who were like a little bit older than you, that became their generation. Like, oh, okay, like this was a good way of inundating people who maybe not gotten into rap into rap, because it's a lot safer, a little bit more sanitized, right? So that's where he became more popular with that. It's also the reason why his second album really dropped. Really flopped, because a lot of those people had aged out of Will Smith, and then you were getting into stuff where you had NWA, you had KRS-One for people who are up north. So up north you had your very insular, like, backpack rap people, and LL Cool J.
Backpack rap.
That is a phrase. It is conscientious.
I've never
rap.
heard it. I'm your token white friend. Let me just soak this in.
But you have people who are up north, and they were listening to these very this is what's going on, and then you had the West Coast where it was like, yo, everything's going on. You have the backdrop of the whole stuff with the race riots and Watts and everything like that, and you have Will Smith, who is in the enviable position of I'm just going to be fun, and a lot of guys are like, hey, our life isn't fun. So he became a man on his island. He did not have an audience, which pushes him to go to Arsenio Hall, then pushes him to meet with Quincy Jones, and then the rest is history, right?
Yeah, it's absolutely bizarre in hindsight, because like I loved Weird Al, but MTV did not have a lot of time for Weird Al, so to be like. It was already hard enough to be a black musician and get your shit out there, especially when you're subgenring yourself. And I never saw DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince as comedy. I just, in hindsight, I liked it more because it was so funny. Right. Like but it was, from my perspective, which is, we've acknowledged, the most important you've ever had on the show. It was never cool. Right. Because I remember like the big hip hop breakout things like pre MC Hammer were like Funky Cole Medina and Bust a Move and like that. Like there wasn't like a thumping play this loud from your car stereo quality that the Fresh Prince seemed to have. But I loved it. And I'm not saying I like had to listen to it in silence, but I had no friends who were into it. None.
Right,
Zero.
but it's the same thing like with people who got really into Biz Markie, right? Because Biz Markie kind of
God,
like Biz
I thought that
Markie,
song-
Heavy D, like they kind of travel in those spaces, and a lot of people who are considered like really big hip hop heads, especially like people who would have been like 10, 15, 20 at that time, like we're like, oh, these guys are corny. Like it's not cool to like Will Smith. It's not cool to like Biz Markie. So that would have been the easy thing. It's like, oh yeah, well that's it's corny. It's not.
I remember first hearing "You Got What I Need" on the radio, and like, why isn't this everywhere all the time? What is wrong with everybody? How come music can never be fun? I remember having that argument when I was 13 in school. Like, I only like funny music. So this really, really appealed to me. And the only other interesting thing I'll say about my perspective, when the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air came on television and was a hit, it was, I had like, I told you this guy was awesome. What is wrong with, why doesn't anybody listen to me? I love this man. And I've never been so right about something. And I'm also 9. So like, I had just started podcasting. And anyway, I'm sorry, I'm derailing the whole show.
Tapes, yeah.
But that was my perspective on it. Like,
Right.
I don't know that, like, I don't know anybody else with that experience who was in love with Will Smith and then discovered a sitcom. It was always after the fact, and the music he put out after he became a famous person, I think, is complete. It's not totally different, but it's completely different from what I loved.
Right. I mean, it's like you said. It's less funny. It's more. We're just gonna have a party. Like I love William.
Yeah, it's a good album. Yeah.
But I was also like, I was also 14, so like I get it, right? Like I get it. Like it's corny. I was like, I guess it was corny. I liked it, but it's not. It's not on rapper. He's a DJ, right? It's very like, aha, we're going to party, haha, going to have fun. Like that's.
Dude, please go watch I Think I Can Beat Mike Tyson on YouTube. I didn't know there was a video, and I didn't know that it has Don King and Mike Tyson and calls out Trump twice, and like I knew that part, but I'll recite the whole thing for you right now if you need me to. Like,
well, full disclosure,
including the old barbershop guys. I know all of it.
Well, full disclosure, I actually really, really, really like Wild Wild West. And whenever they mention it on the show, they mention it later on the show, like the Cool Mo D version. And I'm like, oh, I just keep seeing it. I'm like, oh, he always wanted to do that song. Oh.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I love that track.
Yeah. I have very complicated feelings about that song. Like,
me too.
It's not. Will's not bad at it, and I could do without Cisco, and they propped up Stevie Wonder out there.
Only the live version in the video.
Yeah.
But you get an Alfonso Ribeiro. That's like the only time they've done stuff together since then.
I know.
Alfonso Ribeiro.
I really hope. Like I was watching their Zoom call.
Yeah.
And I was like, I really hope just announce you're gonna do one thing. Everybody else has been doing something like just one more thing, but they couldn't because they got James Avery. They started crying, then I started crying, then I had to turn off that Zoom call.
Yeah, and that's my huge takeaway from all this, having been forced to watch the show by you mean people who did not compensate me in any way for my purchase.
What? Just like cuteness wise.
No, I'm happy to have that first season, just because I remember we were talking about this on 30-20-10 recently, like. Because they should do it during the quarantine. A long time ago, ABC and NBC just had like a night, like we could make this a normal night with reruns and pretend it's cool, but instead we're going to run the first episodes of some of our most famous shows in like their 4th or 5th season.
Right.
And when there's no access to DVDs or tapes, like that was, I taped the first episode of Fresh Prince and watched it over and over again. It's one of my favorite pilots in the entire world. And just watching this episode, that set is completely different than what you think of as the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. And I think in syndication, I do think they diminish how many times they rerun it because it just doesn't visually look like the same show.
No, it doesn't. And we talked about it like when we did our first episode. It's a lot of characterizations like different, but what shines is when Will is just Will.
And,
like,
James Avery, like that dude, is like a dramatic comedic actor, the likes of which I don't know that we'll see again. And I watched the first episode. I watched the brother speak. His cold side eye. Like how can this dude be a funny person, a foil to Will Smith constantly, and then be bombastically dramatic at the drop of a hat?
He is a classically Shakespearean actor. I told this to Sonya the first episode. Both him and Kevin Michael Richardson, they both played Shredder.
Yeah,
and they both are classically trained Shakespearean actors.
Yeah,
and they're both black.
They need that Shakespearean training for Shredder.
And nobody talks about how hot Aunt Viv 1 is. Let's get into that real quick.
She is really pretty. I like her. Yeah,
she is.
I think she's a better actress.
She's a better character too.
She has a better rapport with Phil. Like her and James Avery have such a great chemistry. I really wish they could have made it work because she's so good. She's so good.
Mm-hmm.
But let's get into this episode. Yeah, let's get into this episode and actually talk about another fantastic guest that's coming up on this episode.
Yeah.
I'm sorry if I'm making this too long.
Oh no, you're fine. Because we usually record 2. We're just going to do 1. It'll be longer. Like the first episode was a longer one, but it made sense because we were talking about our history and we're talking about your history with the show. So
yeah,
thanks, man. I just wanted an opportunity to say, I've always loved Will Smith.
Yes,
and I've never been able to tell my story like that. That no one else likes the thing you like, and then it gets its own TV show, and you're like, yes. Sometimes the world agrees with you. Sometimes. All
right. So we're gonna go in because I do have a lot of notes because rewatching Community, I did not know Jeff Melman directed my favorite episode of Community.
Cool.
Yes, I'll talk about it in just a second. So I'm gonna clap for myself. That way I know when I'm editing. All right. So Sonya, let's talk about episode 5. Homeboy, Sweet Homeboy.
I forgot what the episode was called. In a bad title.
Well, it first aired October 8th, 1990. It was directed by Jeff Melman and was written by Samm-Art Williams, who is a Tony Award-nominated American playwright and screenwriter. And the majority of his work focuses on the African American experience, according to Wikipedia.
Isn't that nuts? Did you see the Dolomite movie? I know TL did.
I did. I watched it at your house. Yes.
It is the Keegan-Michael Key character.
Yes.
The guy doing serious black plays, having to go write schlock and I'm not calling this schlock, but he worked. The only things you would know that he worked on that didn't get nominated for Tonys were hanging with Mr. Cooper in Fresh Prince.
Yeah, he just I was looking up his wiki page and he had a variety of different things. Also, I was reading that he used to be the sparring partner for Muhammad Ali.
I know.
So I was like, man, that's pretty cool. The man with a diverse background. But anyway, so this episode focuses on Will's visiting friend from the hood, Ice Tray, played by Marvel's War Machine, who becomes smitten with Hilary, much to the dismay of Aunt Vivian.
All right, so real quick before we start getting
Lovely description. So it's Marvel's War Machine.
Before we start getting into James Rhodes, Rhodey.
War Machine, yes.
War Machine, yes. So Jeff Melman, we talked about it before because he directs a large number of the episodes of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Mm-hmm. Especially in the first season, yeah.
But what I didn't realize is still going strong, and still going strong. Community was how many years ago? But he directed my favorite episode of Community, what I think is probably the best episode of Community.
Which one?
It is the episode of the multiverse, the.
Are you kidding me?
That is so. I've been watching the show, and every episode you see, is directed by
Remedial Chaos Theory.
Yeah, Remedial. I think it is Remedial Quantum Chaos Theory. Yeah. And episodes you see is either Justin Lin or it's the Russo brothers. Mm-hmm. When I'm watching the episode, and obviously doing research for the show, and I see directed by Jeff Melman, and I was like, wait, what? But when you think about it, it not that it has the same beats as the Fresh Prince, but you could see a very strong someone who knows how a sitcom is supposed to be plotted and shot and everything does well, and that's a very detailed shot episode. it to me like it's like it makes sense. Like it makes sense someone who would have this kind of a resume would do something like that detailed, that intensive. He's such a really good director. I just really wanted it to give like a shine on the podcast because I was just watching it. I was like, what in the like what? I didn't even realize this was a thing.
Well, and I think he's why most of the season is better because he directs most of season 1, and the show doesn't start finding its footing until he starts directing episodes. So it's like pretty cool the work he's been doing on the show, just finding the characters and everything. But this was the start of War Machine's career, Don Cheadle, as he's known.
I looked at. I wasn't introduced to. What did you call him? Marvel's War Machine. I wasn't introduced to Don Cheadle for another 5 years.
Well, because I looked him up, and roughly 2 years after this episode aired, he would go on to have a supporting role on the Golden Girls spinoff, The Golden Palace, playing the hotel manager role in, and that lasted for like a season. But that was like his biggest high profile role until his later career.
I saw him first in as Mouse in Devil in a Blue Dress, which is a great movie, and then I really noticed him in Boogie Nights.
Oh yeah, he was good.
Yeah, the first thing you probably would notice him from, if anybody remembers the hit film Colors with the greatest Ice-T song of all time, Colors. He plays Rocket in Colors. That was the first time I remember seeing Don Cheadle in something.
This was my first experience with Don Cheadle, and then
it is also like a light send up on the really kind of weird at this point ice craze in terms of naming your hood name. Sorry again for cursing. Ice. It was a very popular name, and Ice Tray is a good joke for that time period.
That's true.
Because his name is Trey.
Ice-T, Ice Cube.
Vanilla Ice. Do not discount my boy. Do not.
Ninja Rap is a good song.
Highest selling rap artist next to Eminem. Vanilla Ice.
I wonder what's the commonality. They both are from Detroit, I think. Isn't Vanilla Ice from Detroit?
I think Vanilla Ice is from Detroit. Let me look that up.
Yeah, they're both clever thieves.
They both have dumber names than the names they use in rap.
Yeah, exactly. Oh no, he is from. He was raised in Texas and South Florida.
Well, his name is Rob Van Winkle. So are we surprised?
Man, that is a recipe for a horrible person. Put a little Texas and a sprinkle of Florida, stir and Nazi.
But obviously, Don Cheadle, tremendous actor. If you haven't seen a Don Cheadle movie, you're wrong. You have. He's been in so much, like Hotel Rwanda.
Yes. Amazing in that, yeah.
Obviously, the Avengers stuff.
Boogie Nights.
He is in Boogie Nights.
The cowboy porn star stereo enthusiast. It's a great role.
What else was he in? Hold on, let's see. Hotel Rwanda, Ocean's 12.
Yes.
He's in the new Space Jam.
Can't wait for that. Hey, look. Been watching a lot of this Jordan documentary. I found out why Space Jam was bad. Or why people of a certain age, I don't consider Space Jam bad. But I was also 10 when that movie came out. But Jordan, instead of like learning his scripts and doing everything, he was playing basketball against basketball players until like 2 o'clock in the morning. So
he was tired.
he was probably tired. It was also Space Jam. This is for another podcast. But Space Jam was literally, it was made like the main bad guy on Space Jam was made to talk crap about his general manager for his basketball team because he hated him so much.
I cannot recommend Devil in a Blue Dress enough.
Yes.
That's sort of Don Cheadle's breakout role. But the one I forgot about is he played Sammy Davis Jr., dead 30 years ago today.
In that Rat Pack movie.
In the Rat Pack movie, and it is one of the silliest scenes I've ever seen in my whole life. That is trying to make a point about how racist all of Sammy Davis Jr.'s friends were. But how he turns away from the crowd to cry on stage. It's one of the silliest sequences I've ever seen in my life. Its point is good.
He's also in Rush Hour 2 in an uncredited role.
Is he really?
Yes. So in Rush Hour 2, remember when they go to the Chinese restaurant in Los Angeles and there's the black kung fu guy?
Oh, right. Yeah.
That's Don Cheadle. It's an uncredited role, but that's Don Cheadle.
He was also in Meteor Man, which I didn't know.
You can't stop this. You can't stop this. It's the Meteor Man.
I love Meteor Man.
I love that movie too. He was also in Volcano, which I totally forgot about. What else?
Where the coast was toast?
Yes.
Look, we're gonna end up reading his IMDb all day.
Yeah, it's like when he was in all the movies.
What we're saying is Don Cheadle's really great, and he also was in Picket Fences as a play.
It's a incredibly notable and weird first performance by this seemingly very classically trained actor. Like Don Cheadle can kind of play anyone,
right?
And I don't think most people are used to seeing him play Hood, which he does here. And
right.
and I know you guys have talked about the themes of the show, and I don't know if you chose this on purpose because I love Don Cheadle, or just because like what highlights what's great about this show. Just like this is every single sitcom is a fish out of water dumb thing at this point, but Will Smith isn't a fish out of water. He's with his family who are also black people in America,
right?
And like watching them become uncomfortable with a guy they think is like, you're just gonna start acting like him, and like it's very, very strange. It's the perfect reason why this show is good, because it tackles the kind of subject matter that the Cosby Show would not.
Yeah.
And like I was sort of flabbergasted, but this whole episode is people hating Will's friend, and there's a light undercurrent of like, did you forget who you are and where you came from? There's a lot of that in the first season.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and we talk about it in this, and I've said, especially like our next episode is going to be one where I have a lot to say, but it's a lot about the show of, you can't run from who you are, right? And I've talked about it before, and I will talk about it a lot, especially this season. It doesn't matter how rich you are, it doesn't matter like where you're at. Like at the end of the day, they are black, and they can't help from being black, but it's how you internalize that blackness, right? Like the thing with Ice Ray is not like them, right? Yeah. And it's watching the episode to see how they internalize their blackness, especially, and as we break down the episode more, Aunt Viv's character, because she's always been the one, hey, we have to give Will a shot,
yeah,
because that's her blood.
You forget that if you don't watch the first episode, that like this is Viv's thing.
Right.
She like James like Uncle Phil's supportive, but this is not his project.
Right.
It's Aunt Viv's. She loves Will.
Right. But when she finally sees someone who is not Will but has Will's same kind of upbringing, she gets taken aback. And I think that's a very powerful thing, because it is a commentary of you can't forget where you're from or where you've been, because at the end of the day you're going to be alienating people that came up with you. And I think that was such a genius thing. Like I said, this season it does such really good things in talking about race, like you said, Chris. Wasn't really handled by the Cosby Show because the Huxtables are rich, and that's like they're it doesn't matter. Like they have the Huxtables have stereotypical like sitcom problems, and it's not bad, and you should show those things. But in Fresh Prince, they looked at, okay, you have these problems, but you also have to worry about a society that is there as well. And how do you define that, and how do you break that forward? And I think that's what's so strong and what's so great about this show.
Right, and I'm sure you covered that, but the show was sort of pitched based on this dude's life who ended up living with a white family in Bel-Air.
Right.
A black dude lived with a white...
But he was from Watts, right? So he was from Watts, so that's even more of a sticker shock. Like you went from, like I'm from one part of L.A., and now I'm going to another part of L.A.
And the sitcom was sort of moving forward with like Will Smith living with a white family, and like I'm so glad they didn't do that, because like I wasn't alive to see the Jeffersons really or anything like that. Like I saw them in reruns, but like this was the biggest, blackest family that I saw on television during this period. And,
other than Cosby, yeah.
other than Cosby, but like even that, it was like I was like 11 when that show was done. I was when I was 11, like this show was raging, and I'm glad the banks aren't white. However, if I may, please argue for some white diversity. I've always thought this. Jeffrey should have been white.
Absolutely not.
I
love Jeffrey.
the way he
Jeffrey
is.
being black is actually perfect because of what they do with the character. Absolutely.
I'm not talking poop on the actor who plays Jeffrey in the slightest, but there is one joke in the opening of the show where he thinks Jeffrey is Uncle Phil, which is the only reason he needs to be black at all. But do you know how funny it would be for 8 years to have a white butler?
Yeah, but Jeffrey
would be
becomes
great.
sassy. And that, like, the problem is like it would be a sassy white butler. That wouldn't have been fun.
It
for
also,
anybody.
and I'm only saying that because like the weirdest thing about the show is the butler. Like,
Yes. Yeah.
no one's had a butler even on TV that isn't Downton Abbey in years.
Well, and like we talked about it on an episode previous, TL, about Jeffrey's like secret inner life that we don't really get to see.
Right.
And,
Like, he lives this very like it's like, oh, I'm a butler, but I have like these wild interests. Like, I just want to show him that. I'll watch Jeffrey.
And there's an episode where he shows up masquerading as Bootsy Collins when they go to Soul Train.
Yeah.
And he tells Ashley not to give him away.
Is it in this episode or the first one? He's like, 9 o'clock, dude. I'm done, and I'm not your butler anymore. And I remember. Yeah, there's episodes like Jeffrey F's like he just does.
Yeah. But let's get more into the
sorry, my
episode.
bad.
Yeah, no. We just want to get more into the episode.
Minute one. So this episode begins with us finding out that Will is homesick for Philadelphia, and I love the little touches of him wearing the Philly sports team's branded clothes from head to toe, particularly the Philadelphia Flyers hat. I have to make a shout out to Canada, so with the hockey team there, so like good for him. But I love his little crop top that he's wearing. It needs to make a comeback, I feel.
Look, as a rotund male, I feel like the crop that era, the crop top, because it was mainly black dudes. He was wearing the crop like the very short crop top things.
Oh, right. The Sylvester Stallone T-shirt.
Yes, which my dad owned because my dad would have been around this age, like Will's age. I'm glad it's gone, and it should have died. Look, if you're a very tall person with abs, it's a good look. Me, it just looks like it's just there's a lot. I think
women deserve to see how hairy my belly button is. I think they get a real kick out of it.
Basically.
Yeah. Oh, you just described me getting into my Prius every day. Giant ass hanging out.
But the big crux of this episode is Vivian, to alleviate Will's homesickness, he should invite a friend from Philly for the weekend to come and hang out.
Yeah, I thought it was really great. The Philly cheesesteak line.
Yes.
So again, my dad's family's from Philly. A Philly cheesesteak should just be your brown paper bag should be translucent from the bottom. Because a cheesesteak has to be greasy and drippy. Don't make the rules. That's just what a cheesesteak is.
Right.
Like, you can't.
And you know what a Philly cheesesteak isn't? On a croissant. Which props to the production designer.
Well, I looked it up. So, like, for the people who don't know, specifically me, a cheesesteak is, according to Wikipedia, a thinly sliced piece of beefsteak with, I presume, American cheese on a hoagie roll, and it sounds really, really gross.
All you need to know is that there is zero nutritional value in a cheesesteak, and it's delicious, and it is even better with mayonnaise.
Yes,
I know it's vulgar to talk about.
First of all, mayonnaise is tremendous. We can't do this. But it should have mayonnaise. It should have cheese whiz, not American cheese. Yes. You have to have aerosol cheese whiz.
I want my cheese orange.
Yes.
I want my cheese the color of the president.
It's really a good cheesesteak is just good, tremendous.
Yeah, man. All our Philly cheesesteak stores shut down here, but he is. I don't know. I've been in a couple Wisconsin suburbs that were like, dude, can I just get a non-nutritional sandwich for God's sake? I haven't spent a lot of time in Bel-Air. Contrary to how I act and deserve to be there, but yeah, like I definitely relate to like being in one of those awful neighborhoods that doesn't really know how to do cuisine like that.
Right.
The Philly cheesesteak is delicious.
Yeah.
Oh. But yeah, I'm totally against it because I cannot stand orange cheese.
No!
But I'm such a snobby person. I think that's probably why. But I think you have to grow up with that sort of sandwich to really
I don't know that you have to grow up with it. It's just that you want to accept that all food looks like it does in comic books.
Right.
Like
You have to be okay with trash. Like like I tell people all the time. It's like sometimes you just have to look. I bake and I make my own food from scratch, but sometimes I just go to Taco Bell, just like, yo, just give me that slop. Like I want it. Like,
I ate at Arby's today, and I can't stop talking about it. I will never do that again. How those people think that is food, it is so weird. Like, there shouldn't be any Arby's. When I see, like, your friend liked Arby's, I'm like, we should talk. There's no reason to even like this on Facebook. I hate Arby's.
Well, I'm one of those people that, I told TL this last time because I was surprised about that he had never been to the Cheesecake Factory.
Never been, never will.
Yeah, but America is weird to me because every time I go to the States, I go to a Cheesecake Factory because I've never seen a place with a 40-page menu.
Yeah.
Except in America. So.
Yes. This is pasta with meatballs, and it is 400,000 calories for some reason. Like,
because the meatballs are the size of a tennis ball.
And the sauce is made of mostly butter. And we ground up the rind of a tomato over it. The Cheesecake Factory is the worst. If you didn't know my plight, lived in San Francisco. It was the only rooftop restaurant. So every Christmas we would eat there, stomach the terrible food to watch the ice skaters and Christmas music from the roof, Union Square. I hate that place so much for being the only restaurant you could look at Christmas stuff from.
Now, if you want to talk about good, terrible American restaurants, TGI Fridays.
I've never been.
I'm a huge fan of TGI Fridays, and it's really good. Is that where we got that Impossible Burger at, Antista?
Yes,
TGI
we
Fridays?
did, and
Yes.
I'm happy to say it's now out of business.
Okay, it wasn't a great TGI Fridays.
The best brass bar chain was Bennigan's. I'm sorry, they had the turkey tom with the pretzel bread before that was cool. It's delicious.
Never went. I loved Ryan's. I was a huge
Ryan's?
Ryan's guy.
Ryan's.
Yes,
Okay.
Yes, I'm a huge Ryan's guy.
Man, I miss all your chain restaurants. Hopefully, when the plague ends, I'm able to go back to America.
I thought
one day.
Canada was where our chain restaurants went to die.
No, like we
And,
don't
like-
have very many here. Like the only ones we have are like Applebee's and like.
You don't have like a Roy Rogers or a Rax
No.
hanging around?
No.
Or a Buca de Beppo.
No.
You have a Fazoli's hanging out around there?
No, oh my god! Like we got a Popeyes chicken here, the first one outside of Toronto, and everybody went nuts. They had a line for 3 months. It was terrible.
That chicken sandwich, man. That chicken sandwich.
That chicken sandwich is like I will only say this now. It is really good.
It's so good.
I did not want to get on the hype train. It is delicious and huge.
Yes. I remember getting it from my mom, and I was like, it can't be that good. And I ate it. I was like, why? Why is this so good?
It's not only good, like you can eat this chicken sandwich and know that none of your money is going to reprogram gay people.
Yes.
And
Yes.
Oh, but speaking of sandwiches, I did a count for how many cheesesteak sandwiches Phil eats this episode. At least 7. So, because he ate 5 in the car. He ate the one that Ashley was going to throw out. And then he's caught eating one later. So I did an episode. I had to know.
I try and explain it to my girlfriend like, I am double your weight. Everything you need to keep going, I should need twice that. Don't judge me when I eat things out of the trash. And I know this is expired. I need this.
He's like a raccoon, basically.
You know, he's supposed to be. Phil doesn't look fat. And I was just like, I mean, I would eat like 7 cheesesteaks, but then I would just like food belly. Like, it's.
Well,
They're
there's
croissants. They're like light. They're like day food. Like, it's fine.
Well, he does he eat one of Will's Philly cheesesteaks? I think he does, but he hides it. So.
Right.
He ate at least one greasy bag one, but there's a scene in the show where Hilary needs money for books because she's going to change her major to communications. which I did not know what a degree in communications was until this episode.
Me neither.
So, but apparently, I was gonna go into it. Well, apparently, I was gonna go into it because there's a creative communications course in my city, which is actually the course and diploma that Chris Jericho took when he moved here, when he was living here. So I only bring that up for the wrestling point of view. So holla, Red River College.
This is crash course in communications taught him how to put up the walls of Jericho.
Yeah.
Well, it taught him to become a famous podcaster. He's a famous podcaster, and he's been wrestling.
Steaks.
Yeah. Cherries berries.
A light plug for 30-2010 this week. Chris Jericho's finest non-wrestling hour, in my opinion, is the scene in MacGruber, which is 10 years old. And MacGruber is wonderful and just a fantastic, weird film. The likes of it's very hard to describe what MacGruber is.
Yeah.
Well,
it's based on a sketch? Well, not really. Is the guy stuck in the 80s? Well, no, he's just a modern asshole. It's actually just an action movie that's with a horrible lead. Yeah. And it's such a hard sell, and it's so weird. Sorry. Anyway,
well, some trivia on me. Chris Jericho's cousin was my grade 6 teacher. So and she knew him and stuff, and I got to meet him once or twice. But oh my god, it was so cool because he was the only reason I watched WCW back in the day. Well, him and Alex Wright, because I had a massive crush on Alex Wright.
Was he nice?
He was nice. Yeah, he's nice. I met him again, and he was super nice.
Chris Jericho seems like a nice guy. I haven't heard any horror stories about him.
He's really good at being not a nice guy.
Yes.
So I don't know sometimes.
But yeah, he's Winnipeg's favorite son, and I'm gonna take his place one day. So be the true hero the city deserves. We'll have to fight it out.
Oh man.
Oh my god. But anyway, so Will's friend Trey arrives. Mm-hmm. And he's played by, as we mentioned, Marvel's Films War Machine. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted to ask TL, how old do you think Trey is supposed to be in this episode? Because he failed the 10th grade 10 times, or 3 times, rather. So how old is he supposed to be? Like 19? 20?
Yeah, I think he's supposed to be like 19 or 20. So I did the math on it. Let's say he started 10th grade. So I started 10th grade young. I graduated early. So I started 10th grade at 13. If he failed it 3 times, he would have been 6. No, he would have been like 16, 17, because Will's supposed to be in the 10th grade as of this show.
Yeah.
So he's like probably like 17, 18, or like I said, 19 would be at the oldest, maybe. Which that's not a big gap. Like I had friends that I was 3 years. My best friend actually, I'm 3 years younger than he is. So like that's not a huge gap. It's a believable gap.
Yeah, and I was like, because it made the way they set up their friendship, it made it seem like they weren't friends because they were in the same school, if that makes sense. They became friends because they like lived close to each other or some such. Because like they have that picture of them as young boys, and like and it they don't mention that they went to the same school or anything.
That hit me like super hard. Because did you? I mean, I know we've all been bullied, but like I feel like as being a bit older, like I was bullied to like no, I would just get punched in the face like every day at school, like kind of bullied.
Right.
Like just someone just walk up to me and punch me in the face. And my ice tray was named Bryce, and I don't know. We had a couple classes together, but he just started stepping in between me getting beat up, and I've always been tall and awkward, so like I probably could have defended myself. I just didn't know how to do it. So like that to me was like, yeah, that's like I still think about that guy almost once a week, and we haven't talked in 20 years. But right. Like the guy who stood in between me and getting hassled like every day.
Yeah,
from all different types of people. I don't know if it's the jail philosophy, but like everybody of every different background needed to take me down for some reason once I hit my growth spurt.
Right.
And I was just a walking target. Weird, gawky, tall dude who clearly can't fight. So right. I'm getting punched by rednecks and gangsters and preppy kids, and like everybody's punching me. That it's not just a bond of like, yeah, we were young together. Like, no, if I saw this dude right now and he asked me for like $2,000, I'd see what I could sell. Like
Right.
I understand the relationship with Ice Tray.
No, and I have, like I said, my friend who was 3 years older than me, I have a very similar situation. Like, my buddy Alfred, I literally met him when we were in second. I was in second grade, he was in fourth, and I literally met him outside because him and his brother were playing Power Rangers. I just moved into my neighborhood, and I was like, "Oh, you like Power Rangers? I like Power."
Yeah.
And we just became friends ever since. We kind of did like the thing where he was older, so he like split off. But like I was getting really bullied really bad in middle school, and because he was an older, older kid, like he stepped in, and then we've had an inseparable bond since then. Like I consider him like my brother. Like he's like my older brother, because like that's, like I said, he was the person who looked out for me. We didn't run in the same circles. There's a lot of stuff that we like independently of each other, but like he became that person. Like I said, and then he became more of like a big brother to me. But it started off in that same kind of scenario, and this stuff happens, especially like in black community, especially like up in Philadelphia and in New York areas, because you can be in the same neighborhood, but a lot of like how the branching schools are, a lot of people might not go to the same school, but you're all from the same neighborhood, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So that's where that can kind of happen, where that there goes in. And when we talk about, when we talk about Will, like there are people. So you always hear about this with like sports. If you ever watch like a sports documentary, you always hear like people who live in bad neighborhoods. They'll always say, "Oh, well, we looked out for him because we knew he had to get out." Nobody wants people to be in a bad situation, especially black people, right? Like there's always that the racial way of people talk about black people living in the hood is like, oh well, they just they stay in there. But a lot of people who even stay in the hood, if they see you have a way to get out, they'll make sure you get out. I know there was a football player who used to play for the Jaguars. He does like radio stuff now, Marcellus Wiley. He talked about it. He grew up in Compton during the Watts riots, and he said when he was going through, because he ended up playing football at Columbia before he went to the NFL, but everybody knew he was very smart, he was very studious. They were like, you can't take a part of any of this. Like we're not going to let you get a part of this. And there were people who would protect him from falling into that. And that's what Ice Tray kind of was for Will. He saw Will's potential, and he was like, yeah, I'm not letting you mess this up. And that's why he would like protect him and stuff.
Well, that's the kind of situation I had growing up on the Indian reservation, for Chris, who doesn't know. But I had an Ice Tray who I've known since I was in nursery school. But we had a falling out as we grew up because she found out I had a crush on the guy that was her foster brother, so she slept with him. So I was just like, we're no longer friends anymore. But back in the day, she used to prevent certain things from impacting me, even though she had I had a really good upbringing with my parents and grandparents. But a lot of people would see me doing things like reading and like doing well at school, and she would defend me in terms of like, like step off, she's doing something with herself. Like she would support like all my nerdy interests and make sure I didn't stop being such an idiot, or stop being such a weirdo, because she knew I was going to get out. And I think as we got older, she got a little bit bitter about that, because like as I was getting out, I wasn't taking her with me, which so it's kind of like I had a negative Ice Tray basically.
You're going to try and take your foster brother away. I'm sorry, I will not steamroll over how hot that sounded.
Oh, shut up. This is not Pornhub, Chris.
I know.
Please.
I'm sorry.
Calm
Look,
down,
we've all
calm
been
down.
quarantined. We're dealing with it differently.
But I love what you said, TL, about Will or Trey being a sort of older brother to Will. Like, cause Will actually calls him that. Like, he's more of he's less of a friend and more of an older brother. Yeah. And I love the ease at which they like. I wonder if it's just because like Don Cheadle and Will Smith are really good actors, but I love the way they fall back into their friendship. But like how easy it is.
That to me, that's one of the most like in watching that. It's a crime we never got those two in the same movie, because they just have really good. Again, they have really good chemistry, and none of that seems forced. And it's just them cracking jokes at each other. Like, what if Don Cheadle? I love Martin Lawrence. What if Don Cheadle was Martin Lawrence in Bad Boys? Like that seems like that would be like, it's just like perfect casting to me.
Don, we want you in this movie. Can I just hear you say, "Oh"?
But we would have
all you
less
got to
of
do to
those.
play that part.
We would have less of those, okay.
Like,
But
oh! I just watched the latest one. Drink every time he does it, and you'll be dead. And I love those movies. And I'm not saying this to be pejorative. I thought it. I'm watching this and like I think it'd be great if they played like Laurel and Hardy, because like to me that bit they dive into is like pure vaudevillian.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah,
And
like
it's-
that call and response type thing.
Yeah, it's
it was
like
really cute.
it was like a really old comedy time beat thing, which only really good actors can really do convincingly.
Right.
So I'm saying that as a compliment. It is a lot of old timey jokes that they're telling with one another, but it was awesome. It's a kind of moment. And remember, Will Smith doesn't think he's an actor 4 episodes ago.
right.
And immediately falls into a rapport with Don Cheadle. It's an amazing sequence to look at. Like, I think it'll be in one of their obituaries, especially if they both die together.
Yeah. Plane crash or something. Oh,
Yeah.
knock on wood. knock
Please,
on
yeah,
wood.
please, yes.
But I love how sweet they are. Like, because you can, like, I've had this type of reaction, like, this type of interaction with, like, close friends or, like, my sister or something. And just, like, the laughter, the way they cackle with each other is so, like, it just, like, warmed my heart because it's so homey to me.
Yeah, I didn't think about the age difference until you guys mentioned it, but it is interesting that like he describes later in the show how protective Ice Tray was over him, and he is immensely protective over Ice Tray now that he needs the protection that only Will can offer in this awkward environment.
Right.
Yeah.
Sorry, I thought I didn't kind of recognize that.
No, it's like I said, it is like and this is when Ice Tray gives that speech about like, hey, Will, I know you used to hide your books. So it's like he's just like, oh, War and Peace. Like, whose book is that? Oh, that's Carlson's. He's like, signed by Will Smith. Oh, they make us read that. And he's like breaking it down. He's like, yeah, you like to read. That's what makes you good. Like you're doing good out here. I remember when you would walk from home from school with a pizza box to hide your books, and then like he's like, yeah, they tried to take my pizza box, but he was like, yeah, don't ruin it. And but to me, that was the important thing. It's someone who sees, hey, Will, you got out of the situation. You can't ruin this. You can't mess this up. You have to keep going. And I think to me, that's one of the most touching things about this episode. Like, I was just watching, I was like, that's so good for the 5th episode of this show.
Yeah.
Just like to put something like this is like, it's really good writing.
Well, and it's so
And
sweet
there's-
too.
there's-
Like, it's just like because I think you think like you're supposed to think that Vivian only sees that Trey saw a free trip to LA in this visit to Will, but you see that probably Trey just jumped at it to be able to go talk to Will again and just hang out and make sure that Will's taking care of himself and doing all these things. Because I love how sweet it is that like he's not teasing him to be malicious. He's teasing him to be like, dude, stop like trying to hide who you are. I love that.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
And hitting on the big thing is that like Trey immediately starts dating Hilary,
Right.
which the parents have a huge problem with. And like in the beginning of the episode, and this could just be the writing and the nature of sitcoms, I had racial and class overtones, and then towards the end, like, what's Viv's biggest problem? Like, you can't take anything seriously, Ice Tray, and like, so that description is just me, or in everyone I knew,
Right.
Like, just people who had no idea how to grow up because there was not a lot to look forward to, and just like, yeah, we're just gonna be goofy until it becomes sad, or we make something of ourselves. But like, when you describe like, what's his age? Did he fail at us? I was kicked out of so many schools in all of my 10th grades. Like, my upbringing, while not West Philadelphia, is more similar to Ice Tray's than anyone else in the show.
Right. I mean, and that was the thing. It's like, because there is a bit of classism to it, but there's also a bit of like, she was so afraid that Hilary was going to throw everything away and be with Ice Tray. And to her, that was the worst thing possible, right? And that's where it gets really interesting to me, because that can come into, there's a lot of internalized like racism that comes from black people as well in that scenario, where it's like, it's the common phrase, crabs in a bucket, right? Crabs in a bucket. Crabs will always pull another crab down in the bucket with it, right?
Not a common phrase, but I like it.
And
Never heard.
But it's used to determine like how some how some black people, treat other black people, right? Some black people are crabs in the bucket, and every black person who gets some kind of wealth is afraid of someone trying to pull the other people back down because they made it out, right? But she doesn't see that that's not his intent. His intent is he wants Will to be better, but she doesn't see that, especially when it becomes to her daughter. It's okay if he hangs out with Will, but now it is affecting her immediate family, and that's when it becomes a problem.
Well, and I think too, Vivian, as we find out later in the season, she grew up really, really hard. Yeah. And like had to like clean toilets to go to school, that sort of thing. And the idea of Hilary going through that same struggle that she did by marrying Trey, like presumably she doesn't want Hilary to go through that struggle, and that's like all she can see in Trey is her own struggles from the past, like, and tied into that whole classism and racism thing too. Like, it's just like, because I could see it from her perspective. She's like, I don't want my daughter to suffer the way I did to get half of where I am now. Because I really love Hilary in this episode because she's so cute when she's in love. Like, she's like adorable. I just love her.
Is this the first time we've seen her smitten with anybody?
That's right. Yeah, because this is before the whole Trevor arc, which I can't wait.
Yeah.
Trevor's one of my favorite characters of all time.
Oh my god!
I love Trevor. Well, she dates a few guys, but like Trevor's the one that becomes like the big one. Basically,
we talked about Bright Gumble in previous episodes, but that's Trevor. Trevor is just Bright Gumble. Like he's literally just Bright Gumble. I love it so much. Every time I see that actor and stuff, I'm just like, you can't act it. You're just Trevor. Like, I don't see you as anything else.
I do wonder. I want to see someone write an article about Hilary in this show, because she's kind of no one's favorite character, but like has a ton of great lines.
Well, and she has like magnificent growth from like, if you watch the whole season in one go, like if you watch the whole show in one go, you see her go from like the spoiled girl to this like the next coming of Oprah, basically. And like, it's really interesting to me because she does like, though she doesn't change, her circumstances change. Like, she's still allowed to be a selfish, self-centered person, but she's not malicious in that way. And I really love her. Like, she's one of my favorite characters.
I think we talked about it before. Hilary could not work in today's day and age, and the reason why is she is definitely a model of like a Kardashian or a Jenner or any of those people, right? But she does so much more than they do. Right, like her character is them, right? Is like that's literally what they've become with what she was parodying in the '90s. But she also grew as a character and was like, I'm actually going to do all this stuff. And now we have that. Like, Hilary wouldn't be satire. No.
I would like to give her character at least a shout out for mentioning global warming in the first episode, which was not on everyone's lips at that point at all.
Yes. Then she went to go hang out with, was it Tom Cruise and Robert Downey Jr.?
And Bruce
Willis. That's right. Bruce Willis and Demi. That's how you know the show's old. Because it was Bruce Willis and Demi.
But I like her in this episode just because she gets to do something other than ask for money. Well, and I just love that.
Yeah, then to be a burden, like everyone's worried about her, and there's a sizzling under the surface realization, like, Viv, our daughter's gonna bang a lot of guys. Like they're not all gonna be husband material. Like, let her work her way through her moments, and watching them struggle to do that in the face. And Ice Trey is admittedly annoying. He just from someone who likes to be funny, very try hard.
Yeah, but I mean, he's also a 19-year-old kid, right? Like,
right.
So of course that happens. Like, it's like I said, I was like, well, I was a little bit kind of like in watching the show, and I know they get past it, but I was like, when you watch it, you're like a little bit taken back. It's like we're like literally like Ice Trey could be Will, without Ice Trey, how is that not Will? And for his aunt,
you'd be like Will, just if a worse rapper version of Will. I got it.
Hey, we don't know. Don Cheadle might have bars. We don't know that.
Yeah. Well, they bring that up in the later episode about like Vivian brings it up to Will when Trey was protecting your books, where were his? And Will says, well, nobody was looking out for Trey like he was looking out for me. And how that would have been a waste if Will had turned out to be not like Trey, but like the guys that Trey was protecting Will from. So it's just
because he steps in to be like a protective figure. Yeah, because Ice Ray has to step in, and I didn't even realize I had figures like this. That someone who steps in that's somewhere between a peer and a parent, like that is protective of you and sort of helps you get through your life. I don't know. It was interesting because like I had forgotten that reveal. That reveal happens after Ice Tray just comes across as brash and annoying. Which he definitely is. Nobody insults my butler in my house. That's the rule I live by. If you want to know what white privilege is like.
But there's that part
my
where
butler.
Well, then we get to the part where James Avery's eating his 7th cheesesteak sandwich in the episode, which I love just for the little napkin he has tucked into his shirt, and he's like secretly enjoying himself. It was such a cute little bit of acting. I just loved it.
Look, you gotta get a cheesesteak, but sometimes you gotta be fancy. Like I get shit. So I have a friend I hang out with a lot, and we were out getting drinks, and I instinctively, I don't do it on purpose. When I drink, I do this, and you guys can't see it. We're on a Zoom call, and I lift my pinky up. I don't mean to do it. I'm not putting on airs. Who am I putting on airs for? But I do it. And she was like, she gave me stuff about it. She was like, "Oh, what are you fancy now? You're drinking." I was like, "No, it's just how I drink. I like to put my,
Get me a long stem wine glass from my Schlitz. Gimme."
Oh my God. But so wait, let's see. I also, speaking of James Avery, when they're in the restaurant, I love his line delivery of talking about Trey and Hilary's future children and referring to them as little ice cubes. Like just the way he said it killed me. I was just like, because he said it with such sincerity, and it was just adorable. I'm like, man, I miss James Avery. I wish he was back.
Yeah.
Bring him back.
I would trade so many actors for James Avery. Just James Avery live forever. That's all I want. No.
I would kill Lorenzo Lamas' whole family like to have James Avery back. That would be amazing.
Satire. This is satire.
This is all satire.
Is it?
Satire.
I'll sign off. I'll get a notary to sign off on this. I'm standing by this.
But okay, so and we get to the part where Trey and Hilary trick her parents into thinking they got married, and Vivian explodes and tells Hilary like he doesn't care about you. So like, but it's telling to me that Trey doesn't get insulted by this. Like he knew it was gonna happen, and I don't know if it's just Did
you get the feeling that Trey is used to being insulted like that?
I think so. I think that's what it is. Trey is just like, no one really thinks that I can amount to anything. So of course, like that's fine.
And that like I just had like a little moment like knowing Hilary from the rest of the show. Like, do you think she's the type of person to get married to anyone like this? not like Ice Tray, but like immediately, like she's aware of everything. That's why she knows it's funny to do this to her parents. Like, why do her parents assume this terrible thing about her? Like, she's still got a lot of like weird class stuff to worry about as well, and a lifestyle to preserve. Can you see why she would think it was funny to announce she's getting married to Ice Tray at the table to her parents? Because like this is implausible. This is a dalliance for me.
Well, and I think too, it's also that idea that if I crack a joke about myself, they can't make it. Like,
okay.
If I
made
get
fun
you
of
to
me
laugh
first.
At me, then you can't do anything about it. It doesn't hurt me as much. But I think it like hurts Will a lot more than it does Trey and Hilary. Well, it obviously does. Like hurts him a lot more because Will sees himself as Trey. A lot of himself in there, and it's one of Will's first bits of really good acting where he is hurt by what Vivian says to Trey and Hilary, and like calls her on it when they get home about how Trey was okay with her until he started getting interested in Hilary. So it's like so good.
I think this is the first episode where you because this is the first time where you see Will act, right? Like everyone does the why doesn't he love me thing, and we'll talk about when we get to the episode.
How come he don't want me, man? Those are the lines. How come he don't want me, man?
I think
do not crap over the best scene in sitcom history.
I think that scene is highly overrated.
No.
It's a good scene, but I don't think it.
What about Carlton? Give me the gun.
You
owe me.
Well, my favorite scene that he's done is the episode where they're both telling him and Uncle Phil are both telling different versions of the same event. That is his best bit of acting.
The Rashomon
episode. Yeah.
And just because I have nowhere else to say it, I cannot walk into a pool hall without saying, "Give me Lucille." Like I think about Uncle Phil swindling someone in a pool hall every time I see a pool table, which is absolutely rare and rare every day.
But
I can't hear "I Got the Power" without singing it the way they do in the first few episodes.
Can I? I don't remember. Can I hear some of it, Sonya?
It's like, "I got power."
It's getting kind of heavy. It's getting kind of.
Sorry, it's night here. I can't sing it as loud as I would.
But
back to the episode.
I meant to say,
my bad. Sorry.
I meant to say it's such a good acting thing, and like you said, here's a guy who's not a trained actor, but he gives so much emotion in the scene. It's like you feel bad. Like it doesn't end like it's not the stereotypical like sitcom. Oh well, we'll be okay with like it was. Well, like no, this is messed up, and you have to sit on the fact that this is messed up, and that's how we end the episode. And I think that's just such really good. That's just really great writing.
I think, and I watched the earlier episodes after I watched this, and due to the nature of the comedic nature of Will's character, he's very accepting of their culture, and the first time a little bit of his enters the picture, everyone is incredibly disrespectful.
Yeah.
I can completely understand like him being miffed about that, because he's mildly made fun of everyone, taught them how to dance on occasion, but like he's not rude, and like everyone is outright rude to Ice Tray, and you have to, if you're in that position, like that's being rude to Will, to you.
Right.
Like that rudeness is like, what are you talking about? Like I've bent over backwards to be nice to you people and accept all your bull crap, and now you're gonna crap on my friend. That was really hard not to curse during. Someone give me an award. Is there a podcast award I can get for not cursing?
Isn't that how you get a Webby? I don't know. I've never gotten a Webby before, so I don't know.
Oh, but I was thinking too about because related to Will's acting, I think it's largely due to the fact that the character is Will Smith. Basically, Will himself is a gifted person who grew up in a very negative neighborhood, who had all these opportunities that might have not been provided to him if he was like gifted. He was in a good place to go on to do great things, and I think that informs a lot of his character on the show, which is really powerful stuff. Like I like some of the stuff that he gets to, like especially in the next episode where we talk about the carjacking episode, is just like such great little acting, because like I don't think a person, if he was living with a white family, I don't think we would get these types of episodes the way that they are. Like it's just so cool to see how racism still exists at this level. Just even if you, like we've mentioned it before, TL, about how racism still exists even if you reach that gauge of success that white people say you have to be at to be considered a person.
Right.
You've reached the "I'm not black, I'm OJ status."
Yeah.
Yeah.
I shouldn't have to deal with this anymore. No, and you probably are dishing out a little bit. I don't know. Like I'm not the authority. I can't be the authority on this. But it was something I definitely recognized in this rewatch. Had the show gone forward as it was intended, I don't think it would have lasted anywhere near as long. And like, it doesn't. The show never scream to me like a. This is a black show to me, but like there's something. There's a reason why when I wanted to watch it, my only options were to subscribe to all of cable and get BET, because they have the exclusive streaming rights right now. God, that's probably never going to happen again.
Right, but I mean, it is like you said. It's a black show because it does go on. Like I said, it's very important. It goes on to this talk about race, and it looks at it in a different way, and it's like I said, to me, my biggest shows like influenced me are this and A Different World, because I thought they were so important to show young black people, but not every urban character in every other sitcom where they're interchangeable and they don't have any growth. Yeah. They're all the same character. They show different black people. It's the reason why Whitley, to me, is the greatest written female in comedy history, because she is a rich black woman from a southern dynasty, and she can do all this range, you know, and it's the reason why Will is so important, because here's a guy who grew up in the hood, who grew up like in a bad situation, but he's also smart, funny, athletic, he can be a goof, and he doesn't take himself too seriously, right? So you got to see these
I totally thought about our conversation about Whitley that we had on our show. It's like if everyone in the cast left and the show had to go forward with Hilary. Different World is if like Hilary was the lead. Right. There is more to her character than the show will ever show you, but it could have been that. It reminded me a lot of Whitley.
Well, the episodes that focus on Hilary tend to be a lot more sweet. Like there's an episode where she finally gets a job as a caterer, and it's her and Jeffrey talking about how she can't just go through life quitting everything once it gets hard. And so it's just a really sweet episode, because like in the next episode we see her and Jeffrey at odds, but like the scenes where she and Jeffrey get to be this sort of, because she's seen her, like Jeffrey has seen her grow up, and I love the little family aspects that she has with people like that, because like again, she's a selfish character, but she does care about people, and I love that, those little glimpses into her background, especially in this episode where she gets to be a teenage girl having a relationship with some cute guy. Yeah. Because we never get to see that. Yeah. It's very rare. Yeah. Especially for a black
I had that as
like,
a note.
I love that.
Yeah. And my only other note was that, like, this is the first episode I've watched in a long time, and, like, Carlton has, like, 2 lines in this whole episode. Yeah. Like, he doesn't have anything to do here. Because,
well, the next episode is his one, yeah.
Yeah, and I have no other assertion on that. Just that, like, man, I really wanted more Carlton, but like, he doesn't really have a point here because Hilary can make all these points too. Carlton, being oblivious, didn't need to enter into the situation. But I wanted my second favorite host of AFV to shine more.
Really, he's my favorite. Take that, Bob Saget.
You stop it.
It wasn't fun.
If you send me a clip of Alfonso Ribeiro doing a consistent impression of parakeets that's anywhere near Bob Saget's, I'll listen to you. but no, if he's not going to do the oh God, I fell down, oh whoopsie daisy.
Didn't you only have one impression on that show? That's a joke, I guess.
No, Bob Saget, he did a bunch of different voices on that. No one's... Tom Bergeron couldn't be bothered. He was just like this omniscient narrator. Sometimes people are stupid. No, that's not what I need to hear. I want Bob Saget impersonating every animal on screen. Thank you. This is a separate podcast that really should interest no one. The America's Funniest Home Videos.
Check out our next podcast, America's Funniest Home Videos. YouTube videos.
Fresh Prince is a good idea.
Tosh point 2, I guess.
But I wanted to make mention before we officially end the episode. I love that line that Will tells Vivian. Nobody was there for Trey. If he hadn't been there to cover my back, maybe I wouldn't care about myself either. I just love that. Because you can see a lot of like, just perfect.
Yeah,
I think that's where you get like the playwright stuff enters into the equation.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't think about that. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And like I said, it sits on the episode, and that's how it sits. Like it sits and it ends on there. Like it doesn't go into. You're right, Will. It's like Vivian. Like I have to digest it, and you're right, Chris. It is very play focused. Like it feels like ending to a play.
I didn't even think about that. It does kind of like end on like. Well, nothing is resolved here. Yeah. This could just happen again next week. Right.
But that's how. But if you're trying to show an American, like that's how family fights happen. You say something like, "Hey, this is something," and you have to internalize that. And sometimes it's not going to be wrapped up in a 30-minute bow. It can't be, you know.
Well, that's why I love this show, and it's the difference between it and Family Matters. Because in Family Matters, things would be resolved. Here, it doesn't. It's not resolved because racism is not resolved ever. So
and because Quincy Jones didn't write any sad music, you can't have. You can't make that sad. It's impossible.
Oh man!
All right.
I'm glad I did this just because like I this show had a really special place for me, and I watched the hell out of it when it aired in reruns, and you know, like most media, it's kind of fallen away from not appearing on streaming services. But this is, yeah, I cannot believe you'd be this deep into a Fresh Prince podcast and need me to vouch for the show. But I could not be happier you asked me to do this because like revisiting something that was like this both important and ubiquitous to me was really special. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I definitely, like I said, I knew I have a very a short list of people I know I definitely want to get on, and I was like, it's like, you know what, good first guest, Chris would be a really good person to get on for this, and like I said, it also helps you out for your show because you got to research this anyway in September, so
right. And it's just like in doing that show with you, it's like, you know, I don't have like the most diverse background in my pop culture, but there was something about sitcoms that like I don't know, like I didn't see, like I just watched anything that was edgier than the other thing, and so I just grew up on gravitating towards the black. We did a show about black. Was it black sitcoms in particular?
Yeah, it was black sitcoms. Yeah, kind of like
so
our
like I wasn't
blaxploitation.
I'm not just saying I wasn't into Cosby because who would want to say that publicly? But like everything else, like I was like taping and rewatching every fucking week, every week. Let's do a Martin show.
Hey,
I've never seen it, so I could be the new meat. So.
Martin is. I love Martin so much. But yeah, so of course this was our episode of Live from the Full House. Chris, you are our guest. What do you have to plug, sir?
Laser Time. You can listen to that show, 30-2010 Video Game Apocalypse. And if you want to be a patron, help us out. Patreon.com/LaserTime. Sick of Star Wars. I don't want to plug too. I'm just happy I got to talk about Fresh Prince for a little bit. Like I didn't know how much I needed that right now.
No, we definitely, and you're always welcome to come on because we have so many episodes to talk about, so many classic episodes to talk about. Definitely. Sonya, do you have anything that you would like to promote at this time?
Well, my new website, SonyaBallantyne.com, which I made just this week because I need to get a new job. I am starting a blog there about just reporting on video games, general nerdity. I wrote a short blog post about The Last of Us and the idea of choice and the importance of choice in storytelling. I also am on Twitter at honey_child. I tweet a lot about either racism and indigenous issues or how cute I find Cillian Murphy. So it's a good mixed bag. So, and yeah, just find me on Twitter. I always love to hang out with people.
You're writing about indigenous issues and racism, and then you choose the most white aristocratic looking guy in the world to obsess over. Oh my good lord.
I'm sorry. I'm what do we call them? I'm like, I have ever since Michael Keaton and Batman '89, I've had it hard for guys with blue eyes and black hair.
There is no one I can imagine kicking over a TP faster to get the regatta started than that guy. Like, I can't believe that's your crush. Ow.
He's Irish. Ow. He's okay.
All right. At least it's not predictable.
Well, if you want to follow me on Twitter, I am at Travis L. Foster. I am at Turbo Bison on Instagram. Watch me bake. I also do podcasts, P&B, all that stuff. You know the jazz. It's a video game podcast, so I never push anyone to go listen to that. Why would you do those? But no, yeah.
He's the master of the plug.
I'm starting to do more writing stuff. Like, I should have a video essay by the time this episode comes out. It should have already been out. That Jordan documentary, has been fascinating.
I want to watch it now.
Yeah. It's okay. So it is, I believe, because you're in Canada, I believe it's on Netflix. If it's not, ESPN's app has it for free. You don't even need ESPN Plus or any of that stuff, and it's for free. That Jordan documentary is tremendous, and is looking into the mind of a psychopath. Like, this is the guy who breaks down crying when he talks about, everyone says I'm too hard in practice, but I want to win. You can't, like, he just breaks down crying. It is. Are
you referencing the crying Jordan meme?
No, this is a new thing. This documentary has created 3 different Jordan memes, including one where Gary Payton beats him in the game, and he's like, yeah, you know, they didn't have me play Michael Jordan, so I played Michael Jordan. Like, if we played him, who knows? We might not have won, but we would have gotten better. Michael Jordan, because he's a psychopath, starts laughing and is like, oh, no one was worried about Gary. My dad had, this is my first game when my dad died, so of course I wasn't really thinking about it. And I was like, you're just like, what are you doing? He's insane. And they have done 8 episodes as of this airing. They've done 8 episodes. They're working on the last 2 this Sunday. I highly recommend anyone watch The Last Dance. Even if you
I
don't
have
like
the app
basketball.
because the O.J. Simpson documentary, which was excellent, one of the best things I've ever seen. So maybe I'll check it out.
Yeah, even if you don't like basketball, it is.
I don't like sports.
You know what I'm saying? Like, even if you don't like sports, it is insane to watch because, like, Michael Jordan is a whole pop culture thing. So I decided to write something about the weird Michael Jordan's blank spot in pop culture, which is video games. Because Michael Jordan is a crazy, insane person who had his own deal where he was like, I'm not going to be in video games. Except for when he was.
I don't want to look at Jordan as an anti-hero, but he is driven by something that isn't healthy or worth looking or worth idolizing anymore. He's driven by weird stuff we should weed out of all of society. I think. I don't know. Like, Jordan's Ride the Bus is one of my favorite 30 for 30 docs.
Masculinity?
So no, it's not even toxic masculinity. It's just it's a weird thing about
it's
out here, genius and perfection, right? Like, it's the Mozart thing. Like, if you ever watch Amadeus, right? It's like how Salieri talks about Mozart, and Jordan was that, like, they were talking about a player. They talked about it in the last episode, and this is when I was like, oh, this guy's just like nutso. Like, this player, Jordan has a bad game, and this player has a really good game. And Jordan's like he's in the locker room. He's like, oh yeah, he came up to me. He said, good game. And so Jordan, because they had a back-to-back. So they have a back-to-back in basketball where you play one game, then the next week you play the same team at their arena, right? So they had a back-to-back against the same team. So Jordan, I guess, stewing on this whole day, proceeds to put up 55 on the other team and has the guy score 3 points. Now, mind you, he told all these people, like, the guy was, like, saying, oh, good game, or was, giving it to him. And he just comes out, he's like, oh, yeah, I asked Jordan, like, 2 years ago. And he's like, oh, yeah, that never happened. I made it up. Like, that's something that's like, what do you mean you made it up? Like, you took this offense to something that never happened. Like, he is legit an insane person.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, and it makes, every time I watch, even Space Jam is riddled with, like, that opening, like, man, I'm glad I have a good relationship with my dad. Like, I'm so happy. I'm so, oh my goodness.
But yeah, so for Sonya, we just literally did another podcast on it. For Sonya, I am, of course, TL Foster. This has been live from the Full House, and don't get thrown out like Jazz.
Ah!
All right.